The galaxy was dying, and everyone knew it. Stars still burned, planets still spun, and the great cities of the galactic concord still lit up the void, but beneath the surface, fear spread like poison. For over 3 decades, the Exarchathai swarm had moved like a dark wave across the stars, consuming everything in its path. No one truly knew where they came from. Some said a failed science experiment from a forgotten empire. Others whispered of an ancient predator awakened by careless explorers. Whatever the truth, the result was the same: death. Entire civilizations, proud and powerful, had fallen within days. Fleets vanished into silence. Colonies turned to dust. Their weapons, their numbers, their cold, hive-like strategy. It was unstoppable. And worst of all, they did not speak. They did not answer peace calls. They did not stop. They only advanced, system by system, feeding on life. At the central world of the Concord, leaders gathered for what was being called the Final Council. No longer were they debating trade routes or political seats. Now they spoke only of survival. The faces around the table were grim, some filled with panic, others with shame. The last great fleet had been destroyed at Varnock 3. The swarm was now only 3 jumps away from Concord Prime itself. If the capital fell, so would the rest of the galaxy. Everyone had their ideas. Some begged to retreat and hide. Others spoke of detonating stars to create barriers. But they had tried everything already. There was no escape and no strategy that worked. Silence fell over the chamber, heavy and thick, until one voice finally spoke, quiet, hesitant, and nearly drowned in the tension. "There is, one more option," said Chancellor Ryvek of the Elyari, his pale face drawn tight. "But it is forbidden." The room turned to him, stunned. "What option?" asked a warlord. Ryvek hesitated. "Humans." That one word sent a cold ripple through the chamber. Some gasped, others looked away. A few whispered to each other, uneasy. Even the most battle-hardened commanders shifted in their seats. Everyone knew the name. Humans, a species once welcomed into the galactic fold centuries ago, and then quickly banned. Their rise had been fast, their minds brilliant, their inventions dangerous. But it wasn't their science that frightened the galaxy. It was their nature. Unlike any other species, humans adapted to chaos. They didn't just survive war, they thrived in it. They learned, they evolved, and they fought with a fire that others found terrifying. When peace talks broke down during the Orion conflict, the humans had ended the war not with diplomacy, but with a 3-minute strategy that erased an enemy fleet. After that, they had been exiled and their systems sealed behind security fields. Contact with Earth was forbidden. They had not been heard from in over 300 years. "We need them," Ryvek said. "They are the only species we never truly defeated, only feared. If anyone can stop the swarm, it's them." Arguments broke out, loud and bitter. Many refused. "We cannot trust them," one shouted. "They'll turn against us when the war is over," said another. "Better to die free than live under human control," growled a general. But in the end, one truth remained: they had no other choice. The vote was called, and by the thinnest of margins, it passed. Within the hour, a diplomatic vessel was prepared. It was an old ship, one of the few that still carried Earth's frequency codes. As it departed toward the Sol system, the Council watched in silence. The fate of the galaxy now rested in the hands of the most dangerous species they had ever known. And none of them could say what would happen next. The journey to Earth was quiet, but not peaceful. The diplomatic crew from the Galactic Concord sat in tense silence as their ship crossed deep space toward the Sol system, a place wrapped in mystery, fear, and long-forgotten warnings. Earth had been marked a red zone for over 3 centuries. No ships were allowed near it. Satellites around its system still broadcast the same repeating message in a dozen languages: Do not approach. This system is under human control. Turn back. No one had dared to test that warning until now. As their ship entered the edge of the Sol system, the crew stared in awe at what they saw. Hundreds of defense stations floated in perfect formation. Drones scanned their ship instantly. Not a single word was spoken, but the path to Earth opened like a gate, being quietly unlocked. It was as if the humans already knew they were coming. Earth itself looked peaceful from orbit: blue oceans, green lands, clouds drifting gently across the sky. But the calm was only on the surface. As they landed on a lunar base just outside Earth's atmosphere, they were met not with a welcoming committee, but with rows of human soldiers standing silently, armor black and glowing faintly with lines of red light. No smiles, no handshakes, just eyes watching, cold and alert. At the center of the formation stood a tall figure in a long dark coat, silver hair cut short, a scar over one eye. General Arden Voss. He didn't speak right away. He let the silence grow heavy, as if weighing every alien standing before him. Then finally, with a calm but sharp voice, he said, "You've come a long way. And you wouldn't be here unless things were very, very bad." The council's representatives tried to explain, to plead. They told him of the Exarchathi swarm, of the dying colonies, of the billions already lost. They said the Concord had no choice left, that only the humans with their unmatched tactics and brutal efficiency could turn the tide. Voss listened without showing emotion. When they finished, he gave a slow nod, walked to a large screen, and showed a map of the galaxy. Half of it was red, marked as lost. "We warned you," he said simply. "You locked us out, called us unstable, dangerous, too aggressive to be trusted. And now you come to us for war." The aliens lowered their heads. They had no answer. But they had no pride left, either, only fear. After a long pause, Voss turned to them and said, "Very well. Humanity will enter the war. But we do it our way. We don't follow your orders. We don't wait for permission. And when we win, we decide what comes next." The council members hesitated. But they nodded. What else could they do? The deal was struck. And as the ship lifted off again, carrying the news back to the Concord, the last image they saw was the dark side of Earth, lit not by sunlight, but by the glow of massive shipyards rising into orbit, silent and ready. The humans had been quiet for 300 years. Now they were waking up. And the galaxy had no idea what was coming. When the first human warships entered the outer borders of Concord space, everything changed. They did not arrive with fanfare or greetings, but like shadows emerging from the stars, silent, fast and deadly. Their ships were unlike anything the council had ever seen, black as the void, moving with eerie grace, bristling with weapons no scanner could identify. The Concord's fleets, once proud and orderly, now looked old and slow in comparison. But it was not just their ships that shocked the galaxy, it was the soldiers. Human ground forces landed on the most threatened colonies without hesitation. They wore armor that adapted to the battlefield, helmets that tracked enemy patterns, and suits that moved with the speed of thought. More than machines, they were predators, smart, precise, and without fear. Where other species had been crushed, humans held the line. Where others had fallen back, humans advanced. In just 3 weeks, they pushed the Exarchathi swarm out of 5-star systems, something no other force had done in 30 years. But what scared the council even more than their success was how fast the humans learned. Every battle was recorded, every mistake studied. Within days, they adjusted their tactics. New weapons appeared. New methods were tested. It was as if the entire species had turned the war into a game of strategy, and they were playing to win no matter the cost. General Arden Voss led from the front, commanding not from safety, but in the heart of battle. his cold voice guiding thousands through impossible missions. He never raised his voice, never showed anger, but wherever he went, the swarm broke. The Exarchathi, who once seemed unstoppable, began to make mistakes. Their hives were burned, their tactics exposed, their fear began to show. Yet, even as the galaxy cheered for this sudden hope, a quiet fear grew behind closed doors. Some council leaders began to whisper, if the humans could destroy the swarm so easily, what else could they do? What would they demand after the war ended? And could the Concord ever be strong enough to stop them if needed? These questions remained unspoken in public, drowned in the celebration of victories, but they weighed heavy in every council meeting. The humans had not asked for payment. They had not claimed territory, but they had also not explained their full plans. Instead, they kept building new bases, new stations, training grounds in every reclaimed system. They worked like people preparing for something even larger than war. Still, for the people of the galaxy, the humans were heroes. Survivors wept with joy when human soldiers arrived. Children looked up at them with awe. For the first time in decades, people dared to believe that the swarm could be beaten. Yet behind that hope, the shadow of humanity's power stretched further and further. And as General Voss stood over a map of enemy territory, eyes locked on the next phase of the campaign, he said only one thing to his staff: "Now we hunt them." The war was far from over, but it no longer belonged to the Council. It now belonged to the species that had once been exiled, once feared, and now returned as the galaxy's most dangerous weapon. The war had reached its deadliest stage, and the Exarchathi Queen, enraged by her losses, launched a massive assault on Concord Prime, the heart of the Galactic Council. It was a bold and desperate move, the kind no one had expected so soon. Entire fleets of swarm creatures, living ships made of bone and metal, poured through the stars like a flood of darkness, destroying everything in their way. The Council's remaining forces scrambled to defend their world, but they were no match. Panic spread across the capital, civilians tried to flee, and even the Council chambers shook as orbital shields began to crack. Everyone looked toward the sky, hoping the humans would come, but hours passed, and there was no sign of them. Some leaders feared the worst, whispering that maybe the humans had changed their minds, or worse, decided to let the Concord fall to claim control afterward. Just when all hope seemed lost, space around the planet lit up with hundreds of blinding flashes. The human fleet had arrived, and they didn't waste a second. Their ships didn't form traditional lines. Instead, they split into unpredictable formations, swarming the enemy with precise, devastating attacks. Every human vessel worked with brutal efficiency, striking key nodes in the enemy's communication web, causing confusion and panic within the swarm. Then came the final move. General Voss had prepared a secret strategy, one not even the Council knew about. He called it Protocol Blackout. At first, no one understood what it meant, but when the order was given, every human ship fired a special device into the center of the battlefield. A silent, invisible wave spread across the system, an electromagnetic pulse so advanced, it didn't just shut down machines, it disrupted the swarm's neural links, cutting off their hive mind in an instant. The result was chaos. The Exarchathi ships stopped moving, some crashed into each other, others drifted helplessly. Ground forces froze in place, roaring mindlessly, unable to think or act. In one swift stroke, the entire invasion force was neutralized. The people of Concord Prime watched in stunned silence as the most terrifying enemy in the galaxy was torn apart, not with brute force alone, but with cold, brilliant precision. And it was in that moment they realized something far more unsettling. If humans could do this to the swarm, they could just as easily do it to anyone. Fear returned, not because of the enemy, but because of the saviors. As human troops moved in to secure the wreckage and rescue survivors, council members met in secret, debating what this meant for the future. Could the humans be trusted now that they had proved they could win wars in hours? What would happen once the last Darkathi hive was gone? Would Earth become the center of power in the galaxy? No one had answers. Even as medals were handed out and cheers echoed through the liberated cities, a cold truth lingered: humanity had not just changed the war, they had changed the balance of the galaxy itself. And General Voss, standing quietly on the bridge of his flagship, looked out at the stars not with pride, but with purpose. He knew the swarm would fall soon. But he also knew that after this, the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. The war was over, but peace felt strange. The Exarchathi swarm, once feared as the destroyers of civilizations, had been completely defeated. Their hives were broken, their queen vanished, and their dark presence wiped from the stars. The galaxy celebrated, but behind the joy was a strange silence, a tension no one spoke of out loud. Human fleets stayed in orbit above the liberated worlds, not as conquerors, but not quite as guests either. They said they were there to help rebuild, to train, to stabilize, but everywhere they went, their presence was heavy. People admired them. Yes, many even called them heroes, but others watched with quiet fear, wondering what came next. The Galactic Council met for the first time after the victory, but their words were cautious. They had relied on humans to save them, and humans had done so without hesitation. But now, Earth's influence stretched across dozens of systems. Military bases flew human flags. Advanced defense grids operated only with human authorization. Human advisors sat in high-ranking posts, temporarily, as they called it, yet no one dared ask when they would leave. General Arden Voss stood before the council, calm and cold as always, and delivered a short message: humanity asks for no tribute, no territory. But we will not vanish again. We will not be exiled. The galaxy must remain ready, and for that we must remain involved. The council nodded, some with respect, others with fear, because they understood the real message. Humans had changed the rules. They had turned the tide of war, not by sheer numbers, but by strategy, adaptability, and a ruthless clarity no other species had. They had entered the conflict by invitation, but now they stood at the center of the galactic map, not as rulers, but as watchers, ever alert, ever prepared. Colonies, once in ruins, now grew again, under human guidance. Medicine advanced, crime dropped, piracy nearly vanished, but the peace came with a price. Every citizen knew that this safety, this calm, existed because humans allowed it. And if one day Earth changed its mind, who would stop them? Some leaders formed secret councils to prepare, in case humanity ever turned against the Concord. But even they doubted their own chances. In dark corners of politics, a few voices even wondered if it had been a mistake to seek their help, but no one dared say it out loud. Meanwhile, the humans continued to work, to build, to explore. They offered no threats, made no demands, but every action reminded the galaxy that they were always thinking, always planning. When asked why Earth hadn't taken control after winning the war, General Voss answered only once: because we don't need to. You already know we can. That one sentence echoed in every council chamber for months. And so, peace returned, not the old kind, filled with diplomacy and fragile treaties, but a new peace, one shaped by silent fear and undeniable respect. The galaxy had been saved, yes, but it had also been claimed in a way that no flag or weapon could explain. In quiet corners, historians began to write a new chapter, not about the fall of the swarm, but about the rise of the species that had once been forgotten, once cast aside, now standing tall among the stars. Humanity had not taken power, but it had shown it could take it at any moment. And that truth, more than any battle, had changed the galaxy forever.